What is good, everybody? Welcome back to Blerded Out. So we got the new One Piece chapter, One Piece 1115, Continental Fragments. So we're going to be talking about that today. Got some big reveals in it, a bit of what we were expecting, and a bit of new stuff, all wrapped up in a nice little box here. And then I got some anime updates we can talk about as well. As always, a word from our sponsors. You are now listening to the Blerd Out podcast, which is available on your favorite podcast websites like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. Check the link in the description or search Blerd Out wherever you podcast, and you will find greatness. Episodes are also uploaded on my main YouTube channel at Tyrant King Kuma and on the official podcast YouTube channel at Blerd Out Podcast. And if you're not caught up to the latest chapter and latest episodes, please note there will be spoilers ahead.
Spoilers.
Okay, so 11:15. You're starting off still with the cover story of Yamato's pilgrimage around Wano. This time we're with Hiyori and Otoko, and they're making a bento box for Yamato, which is really nice. Something that I noticed here is that Yamato has so Oda does a lot of different types of smiles. The one that Yamato has now is very much like one of Oda's very noticeable Oda style smiles. And you can even see in the panel here, because we have Hiyori smiling, we have Otoko smiling, then we have Yamato. But Yamato is doing when you see this smile, you know it's from One Piece. And matching with the cover story, the chapter actually starts off in Wano. And we have Momo and Kinemon talking about Joy Boy. So it's important to remember here that Momo read Odin's journal. So Momo knows, honestly, a lot about the Void Century because his dad chronicled that entire journey. Interestingly enough, whatever they found on Laugh-Tale and throughout their journey did not include that Joy Boy was a pirate. And I guess it could be because it's from Joy Boy's point of view, where he wouldn't necessarily call himself a pirate because that's what the opposing faction called him. So maybe that's not the title that he chose. It's just what he ended up being. We get a call back to Tomorrow Black, and this time he's pretending to be KIDD. And it's so obnoxious because why? They're also in jail at G4, but the fact that they're dressed as KIDD, Killer, and what is it, Heat and Scorch? I don't know. Killer's entire posse, but the fact that he's dressed up as Killer is insanely hilarious. And then we blip back to Egghead. And throughout this entire chapter, like the previous chapters, it's going to be Vegapunk pretty much monologuing as we get reactions and basically insight from people around the world and on Egghead. And at this point, Vegapunk mentions that he only has access to a handful of poneglyphs. And so I'm wondering what pieces of the story he's missing. Because the stuff he has is world-changing. But I would imagine that he has what Ohara had plus some extra pieces here and there. If that's the case, I feel like Robin should have more insight on this. And not only more insight on this, but more insight overall, considering she's read some of the most important poneglyphs left behind. So I would have loved these two to have a discussion about what they've read from poneglyphs, because she really could have filled in some voids that Vegapunk just didn't know about. But what he did glean from the poneglyphs was that Joy Boy faced off against the organization known as World Government. And this is something that Clover mentioned back on Ohara. So this is why I'm this is probably where Vegapunk gets most of his information, is from what Ohara uncovered. And the Marines are kind of looking like, wait a minute, we're the enemy? But they do cover it with the fact that, well, they said he was a pirate, so it makes sense that we're the enemy. But I think there's a lot more to that, and we're going to see different Marines have different reactions as time goes. Mercury is still setting things on fire, still shouting about Vegapunk, while Dory, Broggy, and Luffy run away. We got Mars using what looks like Conqueror's Haki to knock out a bunch of Din Din Mushis. So just to confirm again, the Gorosei have OD Haki. Now, the thing I want to know about the Gorosei, because I'm of the belief that the Gorosei might be how Vegapunk has his satellites, the Gorosei might be Emu satellites. I think that's a very solid theory. And so I'm wondering if Emu has OD Haki, and because these are satellites, they share that same ability. Now, going more into what Vegapunk is talking about, he says that the only way to oppose Joy Boy's faction was to team up. So basically the 20 original kings came together, created a faction to oppose Joy Boy. Now, he doesn't know what the conflict was, and he also states that he doesn't know the morality of the two combatants. So he's like, I don't know who was on the side of good. I don't know why Joy Boy was fighting. I don't know why the world government was fighting. And so he makes a really good point to not presume the morality or the reasons behind this conflict. And like I said before, Vegapunk is trying to not speculate as much as possible. He's trying to go on what he knows as fact. Now, Joy Boy was born in the highly advanced civilization. So I would think that basically where he was born, that civilization was his faction. And based on what Dr. Clover was saying in Ohara, that civilization was what the original 20 Paupers went against. So this is kind of like a confirmation, because they're saying Joy Boy was part of the faction, and both of those went against the world government, so they most likely worked together. And of course, this civilization was way beyond the technology we have now. So essentially, we've regressed. And surprisingly enough, we've regressed far back to where even what Vegapunk is doing now, he's saying that this is still not enough to match what they had before. He said it's far beyond modern science. Even he himself doesn't fully understand the amount of technology and advancement that they have. Which is crazy because he basically knows almost everything. At least everything that the world knows now, he knows. And while we're getting that, we also get a really quick shot of Foxy, who's grown a really disgusting goatee mustache combo. It's actually terrible. I need him to get rid of that real quick. And cutting back to Egghead, we get Stussy. And Edison and Stussy are having a conversation about lowering the barrier because basically it's not doing anything. The reason for it was to protect everyone inside, but the Gorosei can get past it, so it's basically useless. And they're pretty much like, the Straw Hats will take care of it. They'll figure it out from here. We've done all we can do. No point in us worrying about it. If they make it, it's going to be on their own. Jinbei and Zoro are still making it towards the ship. Nami's yelling at them, trying to get them to go on. And we get another shot of Stussy talking about basically how she has no purpose anymore. That she was to follow and basically devote her life for Stella. That was her purpose. And now that Stella's gone, which is another confirmation that the OG Vegapunk body is dead, he's like, I don't know what to do anymore. And we get a shot of Kaku, and I think he's looking pretty sympathetic here. What I imagine is that they're not going to report what Stussy did on Egghead as like a reason to get her out of CP0. I think they're going to keep her in CP0. And just be like, yeah, we messed up, something happened. And they're just going to blow it under the rug. And I think that if Kaku wants to do that, then Lucy will go along with it. Because like, look, he's a bad dude, but he clearly showed that he cared about Kaku when he asked Mars not to kill him. So I think he's going to respect if Kaku's like, maybe we shouldn't talk about Stussy. And then we cut back to Gandhi. And basically Gandhi's putting in work. Now, I'm gonna say it again. Gandhi is doing the most of the Gorosei. Mars is a close second. Gandhi is putting in overtime though. Because he's fighting Oimo Koshi, he's fighting Bonnie in like giant Nika form, he's fighting Sanji. And he's not losing, I'm gonna tell you that much. Honestly, he's not even focused on the fight. He's still trying to figure out where the Dindin Mushi is. And they mention that basically they want to do whatever they can to keep him from using his sword. Because he's just cutting through everything. And he makes an attempt to cut Bonnie, but Frankie helps her dodge and then she shrinks down, so she's fine. She makes it out. And I really like the shine that Frankie's getting. Like, I respect it. Because he jumped in the way of that cut trying to save Bonnie. Luckily, she shrank in the right time. Because I think when he like arm barred her, she was still in the way of the shot. Like she shrank and it passed by just in the nick of time. And this thing cuts straight through like the mast of the ship and through some of the bird's nest mast parts too, with no issues. A quick peek at Vegapunk's talk. He's mentioning that the Void Century ended with Joy Boy's defeat. And that's something we gotta think about, because you're telling me that a civilization with the technology and science far beyond what even Egghead has, and Joy Boy lost. You gotta have a lot to beat that. You know, that's very much like Garp and Roger versus the Rocks Pirates. Like, how on earth did you win that fight? But and it gets revealed later that basically it was a fight of ancient weapons. Like that's what essentially led to the defeat, and that's what essentially leads to the water rising, is just ancient weapons being used. Gandhi at this point is fed up with the broadcast, and he just goes ahead and sends a huge cut through the stratosphere cloud, cuts through the whole lab. It's like a lower law feat the way done on Punk Hazard, basically in that same wheelhouse. And in doing so, he basically brings all the CP0 agents and the Seraphim out of the lab where they were locked up. So now they're going to be back into play. We get some more panning shots of reactions. This time we're going to a village that I'm sure we've seen before. I'm not familiar with anyone in this village. But we go back to Shimotsuki Dojo, Zoro's old home turf. And they're kind of they're training, but they're looking on as well. And we get this beautiful panel of the ancient civilization. And it looks a lot like it did when Clover was talking about it, but it revealed that it's underwater. Basically, the world we live in now is atop this old civilization. Very, very, very similar to Wano. One interesting thing about this is that Vegapunk says the title of the chapter, which is, continental. But the idea of continental always brings the continent pullers to mind. So I'm wondering if continent pullers will get some shout outs in this lore drop. I would really love that. We get a panning shot of Monkey D. Ellipses and the rest of the revolutionaries all reacting as well. Sabo even has ellipses. So just no reactions from them besides like shock, I guess. And I mean, at this point, Dragon has to know some of this. He has to. Not only did he have ties to O'Hara, he had ties to Vegapunk. And not only did he have ties to those two, he spent 2 years with Robin. So you're telling me that he had connections to probably the three biggest powers when it comes to Void Sentry outside of Roger's crew themselves. If he doesn't know a lick of this stuff, that is such wasted potential on his part. Because what does he do? And then we go by Nami's hometown, Ginzo, Nojiko. I'll listen to the news. Nojiko doesn't care. She said, let me go check on the tangerines. Keep me up to date if something big happens. And then we're back to Vegapunk, and he hits us with a big fact. Basically, within a century, the sea level rose by 200 meters. And then we get reactions to people reacting to just that fact. We get Mocktown, they're still laughing, making fun of it. They don't believe it. We get the Marines who, they're shocked by it, but some of the Marines are like, listen, don't pay attention to that. We got work to do. And it's just like, you guys are really, really into your job, aren't you? Because they're dropping some major stuff here, and you're like, oh no, we gotta get the CP0 agents. Don't bother listening to this garbage. And I think you can see like the different factions of Marines. Like you have the ones that are listening like, wait a minute. So Joy Boy fought against us? Does that make us the bad guys? And then you have other people who are like, don't listen to it. It's lies. Focus on your job. I think we're gonna see more of that as more news drops. But we actually see a panel, and what I believe to be is Miss April Fools, and honestly, I think the person in the back left, the bottom, is Miss Valentine's Day. Like, that dress and hat combo looked very similar to what she was wearing. I think she had like tangerines or lemons. She had some kind of fruit on her dress, and it looks like a magnified version of that. And like I could imagine that she would be wherever Miss April Fools is, because some of the Baroque agents like stuck together. But getting back to Vegapunk's message, he's talking about it not being natural. Basically, there was no indication that this would happen. There was no record of it. There was no buildup. It just happened one time. And so Vegapunk's like, yeah, it's man-made. There's no way it's just, it happened naturally and no one talked about it. And the reason is because of the ancient weapons. Technology capable of sinking the world. And that's when he pulls it ahead and says, that same firepower still exists today, and that they're still using it. So basically, the war that started back then is still going on because these ancient weapons are still in play. And so at this point, he's got to be like indirectly confirming that what they did to Lelusia was the work of an ancient weapon. That has to be Uranus. Because, we got Pluton, we got Poseidon. Uranus is the only one we haven't seen. It's related to the sky. It all makes sense at that point that basically what they used to wipe out islands is Uranus. And when they use it, it alters the sea level. Now, that's the end of the chapter. I mean, we get a shot of Emu again. And basically it's just Emu standing in the butterfly room with the Renegon eyes. Nothing new. Still how emo works. But the thing about this is Vegapunk talks about the Void Sentry, but he talks about not knowing a lot. And that's, for me, kind of a bummer, because I wanted more Void Sentry knowledge. It sounds a lot like he has the general idea of what happened there. He doesn't know why there was a conflict. He doesn't know who was good, who was bad, what reason they were fighting. He just knows they fought. That was kind of the information I wanted to get into. And honestly, I feel like those are the gaps that, say, Robin would be able to help fill in. I feel like she has to have some knowledge that would help fill in what he just said. So, maybe Robin gives us a breakdown after this with some new information. That would be super cool. But overall, this chapter was pretty solid. I mean, it's gonna be probably a few more chapters of Vegapunk monologue with reveals. Like we're in this phase of ending Egghead, where like not only are we seeing the world, but we're seeing all the world's reaction, and we're gonna see what the world does with this information. So we still got to get more like Marine HQ type updates, and I think we need to get more Yonko updates. We haven't seen like Shanks or Blackbeard or Cross Guild react to any of this stuff. So we still got to see that. I think that's coming up soon. And no break, so we'll be on again next week. So let's talk about our seasonals for a little bit. It's funny because I actually mentioned last time that Windbreaker was iffy for me, and that the next episode I watched had to capture me. And the next few episodes I watched have fully captured me. So I'm in for Windbreaker. Like I haven't watched the conclusion to the fights. I think I need to watch episode 7. Or is it? No, it might be episode 8, actually. I might have watched 6 and 7. But I basically need to see the final fight. But man, once the fighting kicked off and the story started, kind of doing something different, I started liking it a lot more. It's good choreography. We're getting like solid backstories and character development. Like, man, we hit a nice stride here. So Windbreaker, we're staying with that. And I mean, we got like 4 or 5 episodes left, so it would be a waste to end it now. As always, Mysterious Disappearances is on the list and still enjoying it. I just watched the latest episode today, and it actually, this episode, it's the one dealing with the spirit that walks on the rainy nights and knocks on the door. This kind of delved more into the creepy that I liked, that I was getting from Dark Gathering, where we actually see these like creepy apparitions and stuff like that. I love that kind of stuff. This was a solid episode. I have to catch up on Loser Ranger. I think I'm behind by 1 or 2 episodes. Still enjoying that. Newgate and Level 2 Cheat, still good. Still enjoying that stuff. Level 2 Cheat, just the latest episodes, man was going ham. Like a really aggressive 180 in his character, because he's such a calm and like nice character, and then someone he cared about got hurt. Man's went off, and it was fantastic. Loved it. I like to see out of character moments. That's always fun, and I hope we get to dive into that a little bit more. I would love for it to not just be like a one-shot thing. I want it to be more important to the character, because I think that provides depth. It's cool that he's a kind, chill character, but I do like to see different sides of him that makes him more enriched. I also started Mission Yokozuna Family, which has been pretty cool. This one's more of the chill one. Like, it's not doing anything crazy for me right now, but it's cool. I like it. It's what I watch when all the other episodes are I'm waiting for the new episodes, basically. I'll kick back to Mission and then I'll watch that. I haven't watched any more Unnamed Memory yet. I've only seen the first episode, and I mean, it didn't really do a whole lot for me in that first episode, but I still plan on giving it, a couple more episodes just to see if it picks up. Gotta give it that chance. Still, I haven't started Slime, still haven't started Konosuba. And the only other one I think I haven't talked about yet was Kaiju number 8, which is still fantastic. That's really fun. I like the overall feel of Kaiju number 8. And I hope we get more and more of that. It has a very unique feel to it, I guess I should say. But that's all the anime so far. I think next week I want to talk about my top romance anime, because like I've been feeling such a void since I finished Dangers. Like I need season 3. So I want to talk about that, and then some of the other ones that I have at the top, because I'll give my ranking then. I have a ranking of like my favorites. So we'll talk about that then. But I think that's gonna wrap it up for now. Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, follow the podcast, follow the channels, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.